Yeah.
To remind you. No, I'm just kidding.
An alarm.
Okay.
An
So I
alarm.
think I am recording now. It says recording.
Yes.
I don't know where it records to or where it stores the recording, but we
You
The
will save it
cloud.
on your laptop later.
Okay.
Really amazing. Old-fashioned.
Yeah, no stream and no cloud platform. Okay,
Old
anyway,
meeting.
so I will share my screen now, so you can see everything I will do, and I will really start from scratch building that application which integrates the SDK. Screen. Share.
Robert, will you also provide the SDK to us so that we can do it in parallel, or should we just watch?
That's very ambitious of you, Michael. Do we have Visual Studio installed and everything going?
Because
I mean, of course, I can also share the SDK. You can just.
I don't know. I think it depends on Nathan. If Nathan has Visual Studio installed, and I think we told him that he should have it up and running.
So
but I'm not so sure.
Okay, Michael, what I will do that worked most of the times with the kids when I was teaching in school is that they not try to do the same things that I do, but just watch me doing it, and afterwards I will send out like a step-by-step guide with the things I have done.
Okay.
So that can be used to try it for everybody of you on your own after the meeting.
Very good.
Okay.
By the way, Nathan, did you receive the sample from Michael already?
The sample is supposed to be in Guangzhou, so in China, like on last Sunday. But here today, I'm still waiting for the custom clearance. Not sure what happened, but yeah. But in the end, it's like I'm still waiting for the sample, and hopefully, I can get the sample next week.
Okay. Good. Let's get started.
Okay. Actually, I wanted to explain a few things about the SDK itself before I start, but I decided to do that while we create the Visual Studio project, and because we need to know those things not upfront, but when we really need to know it. So I will start now a Visual Studio project. I'm using Visual Studio 2019. I don't know what you have, Nathan, but actually it doesn't really matter. It can be down to 2010, and it should also work. But I think you downloaded the latest 2019 community, right, Nathan?
I got actually 2017 community installed.
Yeah, that's fine.
And,
that's fine. That's the same as this one. Maybe some things look a little bit differently, but from the coding perspective, it's the same thing. So first we create a new project that looks definitely different on 2017 than 2019, but you just need to create a new project, and here we are quite free and or flexible in the project we will create, because the good thing about the SDK is that it is basically it's just one DLL. But it's not just a DLL, it's a COM control, and the COM control can be used by different programming languages. So our SDK can be used in a C# project, or in a Visual Basic project, or even in I think it's even possible to make a Java project and use our SDK. So this is called COM control. And the good thing about that is that it's usable from different platforms and different programming languages. But the main programming language which is used on the Windows platform is C#, and we have already, or Nathan has already talked to Unisound, and they are also, their software is also a C#, written in C#. So we will do the same thing. We will make a C# application here. And to have some user interface, we will make it a WPF application. So here we have a WPF application using the .NET framework written in C#. Nathan, that looks completely different than in 2017, but you just need to create a new WPF application. That's all.
Okay.
Project name, simple SmartMike SDK Integration. And it's building against .NET Framework, the latest one I've installed. Also doesn't really matter. You can use any one of this list, or just use the same one as Unisound uses, but it doesn't really matter. We just click create here. Okay. I need a new computer. It's getting slower and slower every day. Okay, here we have our empty project. Here is our window with no buttons and nothing at all. We will do that later. But first of all, we do not want to take care about the user interface. First of all, we want to include the SDK in our Visual Studio project, because this now is really an empty project. The first thing we want to do is add a reference to our SDK. That's quite simple. We have here the references, and we can add a reference. We click browse to select the reference, and what we, wait a second, I will go back to desktop. What we need to do now is find the DLL we need here in the SDK package. So Unisound or any integrator will be provided with an SDK package, which can be downloaded from our website or is sent by Nathan or by me in the first place. But later on, it will be an official SDK which can be downloaded from our website. And this package which will be downloaded looks something like this. So there's a folder, and then we have a couple of other folders in here. And now we want to find the thing which we need to reference here in our application. And in order to do that, we first have to decide if we want to write a 32-bit integration or a 64-bit integration. So this x86 means 32-bit and x64 means 64-bit integration. So this depends now on, for example, the Unisound application. If it is a 64-bit application, I just don't know if it is, but if it is a 64-bit application, they have to use our 64-bit SDK. And if they write the 32-bit application, they have to use the 32-bit SDK. It's as simple as that. We will now write the 32-bit application, and I'm pretty sure that Unisound will also write the 32-bit application, because it just runs everywhere. It runs on 64-bit systems and on 32-bit systems. So it's for such applications, I think it's always better to make a 32-bit application. So I will check this folder, and the reference I want to add here is located in the primary interop folder, and this DLL here. This is not really the SDK DLL. It's just a kind of a wrapper which is needed when writing C# applications using COM controls. You need some wrapper between those two technologies, and this wrapper is called PIA. So this is also DLL, but it is not really the SmartMike SDK. The SmartMike SDK is somewhere else. But for the reference, we use that, and this then talks to the SmartMike SDK. So we add that reference, and we have it here now. That's it. So this is our code. This is stuff Visual Studio already has written for us. So this is an empty project. What we want to do is we want to use our reference now. So we want to use the SmartMike SDK, and to make things easier, we will add a directive to not have to write. Yeah, Nathan, do you know how those using stuff works?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Then I don't want to explain it to all others because it's not important. It's making things easier. I will write here using PIA.SmartMike control. That means that, okay, now I explain it for everybody else. That means that if I do now anything in code with the SmartMike control object, I don't need to write that in front of the object all the time. I can just spare it. That is why it's just a shortcut. Yeah, that's all. So somewhere in our class, we will now declare our main SmartMike SDK object. Visual Studio will help us with that. Since we have referenced the SmartMike SDK already, it will tell us what it has found so far. So SmartMike control, that sounds good. We will use that. We call it underscore control, but we don't initialize it here. We do that later in that method, which is called first. Control is new SmartMike control. So that's it. Now we created our SmartMike control object. This is our SDK object now, and everything we want to do with the SDK, we do using that object, which is called underscore control and is a SmartMike control object. So maybe the first thing we always want to do with our object is initialize it. So the SmartMike control provides some methods, and one of them is initialize. We need to initialize it in order to use it. We could initialize it in here, but we want to have a separate button for initializing it, so I can show you what it really does. So I'm creating here a button, and I said it's the init button. And when this button is pressed, we want to initialize the control. So that's pretty much it. As I said before, when we will not have a lot of lines of code. So these lines of code here, actually I have written 3 of them, right? This one, and this one. Those are enough to make the device working. So if I run that application now, the device will unlock itself, just because the SDK is getting initialized. And we will try that, but before we do, I find that little window here, which is the target processor architecture we are building against. Nathan knows what this window here is. And we said we want to do a 32-bit application because we referenced the 32-bit SDK. So we don't want to have any CPU there. We want to have a configuration for 32 bits. So now it's a 32-bit application. So let's just try and run that thing, I would say. So I'm pressing F5 and see what happens. Slow machine, slow machine. Okay. That's of course not good. It's an exception. First thing we recognize, what we notice here when we see that exception is that creating the SmartMike control object can throw an exception, which means as a good programmer, we want to surround that thing here by a try-catch block to be able to provide an error message to the user. So we want to do that here. And we show a message box with the exception message. So let's run it again, just to see a pretty exception message and not such an ugly thing we have just seen here. Okay, that's also not really pretty, but it is at least a message box. Retrieving the COM class factory for component blah 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 failed due to the following error: class not registered. Okay, so this means we tried to use the SmartMike control, but the SmartMike control, which is a COM control, which is in fact the DLL, is not really installed on the system. So in order to use the SmartMike control, it must be installed on the system we want to use it. So that's what we are going to do now. We will go to the SDK folder, and of course we are using 32 bits, and somewhere there is an MSI file which installs the SmartMike control, the 32-bit SmartMike control. So on the development machine where we are currently developing the application, the SmartMike control always has to be installed in order to be able to write an application which is using it. However, on the clients, on the end customers or on the end user's machine, it does not necessarily have to be installed. It can be installed, for example, by the Unisound applications setup. It can also install the SmartMike SDK. There is a file which can be bundled to the Unisound setup, and then everything would work. But it is not really necessary. We also provide a way to use the SmartMike control in a side-by-side fashion, which means that it would not have to be installed. So this step we are doing now here can be, on the development machine we have to do it anyway, otherwise nothing works. But on the end customer's machine or on the end user machine, Unisound actually could decide if they want to install the SmartMike SDK by bundling that MSI here to their setup, or if they want to use it in a side-by-side fashion, which they only would do, I guess, if their own application is already an application which doesn't need to be installed. So if they are writing an application which is a side-by-side application already, nothing is installed, nothing is written to the registry, no setup is necessary. They are just copying their application somewhere and then it can be run. If they're doing that kind of application, they will want to use also the SDK in that way. So they wouldn't want to have to install the SDK. They would just use it side by side, which is possible. But what I show you now is the other way. It's a registered installation. So I will really install the SmartMike SDK now.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
If you're talking about side by side, does the DLL have to be just in the same folder like the executable?
Yes, I will show you how side by side works when we are done with that one.
Okay.
Because it's quite simple. It is actually pretty much as you just said, but it's not just the DLL which needs to be next to the executable. It needs to be a folder with a special name, and in that folder there is the DLL.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so on this machine here, the SmartMike SDK is installed now. Let's check that if it's really true. Yeah, here it is. SmartMike control, 32 bits. This is the version, and it is installed on the system. So if we now try again to run our application, we should not run into that exception because the SmartMike SDK is installed now, so it can be used by the application. So right now the application did not do anything special. It just created the object, but it did not initialize it yet. And a non-initialized SmartMike SDK object is not usable. So by the way, can you see my my video also? So can you see me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
good. That's good, because then I can show you now that I'm connecting a smart mic. So this is my smart mic, of course, not as pretty as you can get.
Very
I
beautiful.
don't want to use the new.
I like Michael's SmartMike more, to be
Yeah,
honest.
So can you still see my video? Yes, you can. Okay.
Yes.
So the smart mic now is connected, and those LEDs are orangish. Can you see that? There are
Yes.
5 LEDs, and 4 of them are orange and 1 of them is green. So the orange LEDs mean that the device is locked. It would not work. I mean, it would work. It would. Michael, please help me out. I mean, I know what it's doing, but I can't say it in English.
Yeah. So that the proper SDK is like that. So the SDK might be installed in the machine, but it has not yet initialized the device. Let's put it that way. Is this correct?
Yeah, no, that's true. But what I meant is, in that state where the device is right now, it is in a locked state, which does not mean that it doesn't work, but it does not deliver any audio. It does not deliver any audio. So the whole speaker separation magic, which is happening on the device, is not happening right now because it's locked. So it needs an SDK instance to be unlocked.
Now I got you.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, in this state, it would just deliver noise data. So the audio interface is still visible in the operating system, but all you get is noise data. You wouldn't get any separated nor not separated file audio data, just noise.
Yeah.
So it means that the smart mic is not activated. It's not activated yet. It's connected,
you could say that.
initialized, but not activated.
Yeah, we use the term locked and unlocked, but you could also say activated or deactivated. That's true. Yes. So you can still see my screen, I guess. Yes, you can. So we have here our initialize button, and as soon as I press that button, and I press it now, have you seen what happened to the smart mic? The LEDs are turned off now. So this device is now unlocked. It would work now, or activated. So just by initializing the SDK, it would unlock the device.
And I don't know how you see that, Nathan, and the other guys and ladies, but I think that's really simple. That was really easy to unlock the device via the SDK. Yeah, it was just like 4 lines of code.
Yeah, it was surprised. 4 lines of code.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, it has been my first lines of code, so therefore a little bit surprising, but indeed.
Yeah. And if Robert wouldn't have if Robert wouldn't have had to explain everything, he would have been ready in 5 minutes. Huh? Correct?
Less than 5, probably.
My mistake. My mistake. I apologize.
So Nathan will use 5 minutes on his own after the meeting, and then it will be done. Actually, there's
because I don't have
okay. So you have seen that it's actually only 3 lines of code, but of course we need to have a try catch block around this one here. Also, for example, if I now would run it again and I can also somehow provoke an error on the initialize. So I press initialize once, and when I press it again, I see another exception. So Nathan, that is also something good for you to see. This is how errors are handled in the SDK. It's just exceptions. There are no return values or anything like that. If something goes wrong, the SDK is throwing an exception. So actually, you should surround everything you do in the SDK with a try-catch block. So here, for example, I mean, it's nice exceptions, you know, it's not something's crashing, but it's an error which is telling you what's going wrong. Here it just says SmartMike control is already initialized. Yes, because I tried to initialize it again. That's not good. So what I would want to do here also is, of course, to have another try-catch block around that. And do the same thing as here, just write a message. Or whatever Unisound wants to do with those errors. But errors in our SDK are handled as exceptions. That's what I wanted to tell you. So
okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have successfully unlocked the device, and we have a lot of time left. So I also want to show you just one tiny thing which you can actually do with the device. And I heard that Unisound wants to mute and unmute the device from software. Michael, is that was correct, right? So that was a long time ago. Unisound told Nathan that they might want to unmute the device with software. So we will just do that. We will make another button here. And now, since you are all geniuses in programming, after watching me for a couple of minutes, actually, you should understand everything I do now. So we will make a new button, and we will call that unmute. Unmute. And when that button is pressed, we need to unmute the device. In order to unmute it, I will just keep programming now and not explain too many things. Nathan, if you don't understand something, just shout. I mean, it's no problem. But in order to unmute the thing here, we will use another interface of the SDK. So this one here is the main interface, our control object. And we will now use another interface which is called device configuration. So actually, you can see here when I hit F12 on the main interface, here SmartMike control, you can actually see what it is providing, what interfaces or methods it is providing. You can initialize it. We have already done that. You can deinitialize it. You can see how many smart mics are connected. You can restore those smart mics to factory defaults. You can get some device info about the smart mics. You can get device info in another way, and you can get the device configuration, and you can update the firmware. So that's basically all which is provided in the SmartMike SDK right now. That's not too complicated. It's a very lightweight interface. So what we want to do now, we want to unmute the device, and for that we need to use the device configuration interface. We declare a variable here, and we just get the device configuration from the main interface. So we have now a device configuration object. We have to tell it for which connected device. So there will, if there are more smart mics connected, the SDK supports that. And if I want to get the device configuration from the first, we will enter 0 here. If I want to have it from the second, we will enter 1 here, and so on. I have only one connected, so I use that. So on that device configuration interface, we have a couple of properties. For example, we have the microphone status, we have record state indication, we have switch click suppression. Those are just settings on the device. And when we want to unmute the device, we will have to change the microphone status. So we will change the microphone status to unmuted. And as soon as we have done that, we want to upload that configuration to our device. And that's it. So those 3 lines of code would now unmute the device. The device can be muted and unmuted on the device itself. There is in the middle of it, there is a huge button. I think it's the only real, no, it's the most important button. And yeah, okay. There's also the power button. And some volume control. But in the middle of the device, Michael, can you show us the device again? Can you show us the mute button? In the middle of the device, there is a huge mute button. So you can mute and unmute the device using that button, or you can mute or unmute the device using software, using the SDK. So we will do both here. To see if the device has been muted or unmuted, we will also implement an event here in our integration. So the SDK provides us also with device events. That can be the mute button pressed, or it can be the device has been connected or disconnected, or the firmware upgrade has failed, or the firmware upgrade has finished. All those things, all those device-related events are handled as events here in the SDK, and I have to subscribe to those events if I want to handle them. So what we do here,
Robert, may I shortly interfere with you?
Yeah.
For Yvonne, this is important because this is a feature that no other device has. So if you have this big microphone arrays or with multiple microphones or gooseneck microphones, these devices don't have these interfaces, and that's one of the USPs that our devices have against other solutions on the market. Just a short interruption for a commercial perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And that raises a question on my side, because the first project that we're gonna have is with prisons. So I'm just wondering if we can disable the mute button, because I assume that especially if you have investigation, you don't want to corrupt an interview or recording. So is it possible to disable that mute button?
That's a nice request. It is not possible right now, but it will be something very easy for the firmware guys to implement if they are willing to. So it's just a question if that request makes so much sense.
Let us confirm with the customer, but that was just my first thought. If they can mute, that means, well, they're able to speak about topics that are not recorded, and especially in prison, if there's an investigation or something, that could be critical to use that recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that thought, Yvonne. Right now, it's not like Robert mentioned, it's not possible to mute it, but there might be a workaround for that. The software always gets the event if somebody mutes the device.
Mm-hmm.
So the integration software could detect that somebody tries to mute it and even could unmute it again. So the software right now cannot disable this mute function, but it could reverse the state again from muted from muted to unmuted.
Then let's just do that, okay? So we can do that right now. So first of all, we want to get notified about those mute events. So we have some events here. The control offers some events, as I have told you before: the device connected, disconnected, firmware transfer problem, firmware upgrade progress event, microphone state changed event, and unlocked state changed event. Those are the events which we can get from the device. So we are interested in a microphone state changed event. I will subscribe to that event. Visual Studio is helping me so much. It creates a method which will be called when that event is fired. That's really nice of you, Visual Studio. Thank you, Microsoft. So this here is called when the event is fired. So let's for now, for the first step, we just want to have a text box here where we can write that event. The text box is called text box. We will not change that now. So when such an event arrives, we will change the text of the text box to the new state. Right. So let's run that and see what happens when I press the mute button on my device. Okay, of course I have to initialize the SDK first. The SmartMike turns green, so everything works. I'm pressing the mute button now, and I can see the state is muted. You can see by the red LEDs that it is muted now. And when I press it again, here it is, it's unmuted. And you can also see on my application and the user interface that it's muted, unmuted, muted, unmuted. So I get notified about this state, okay? So what did Michael want from us? He wants if the state would be muted. We just want to do this here, right? We could now call that, but I will just copy that here. We will just unmute it again. Let's see if that works. Okay, the device is initialized. It is still muted. I will unmute it. So it's unmuted now. And if it should already mute itself again, right? No, wait a second. If it's no. Okay, if I mute it, okay.
Yeah, I think it's working already.
It's working. So if I try to mute it, the LEDs are flashing really briefly, and then it's unmuted by software.
There's not even any delay, is there?
Yeah, it is like a couple of milliseconds, but
maybe a slight delay, like 100 milliseconds or something like that.
See, I tricked it now somehow, so we need to synchronize that somehow. It not always works, but okay. Basically, it should be possible to do that, but now I don't know why, but
now you crashed it.
I crashed it. Yes. Let's see if the thing here works. Still works. Yeah, it still works. Michael, I think that's even no. It's working again. I don't know why it didn't work before, but maybe it's some timing stuff. I mean,
cool.
Yeah, basically it works. But of course, it would be nicer to have a disable mute functionality in the device firmware. So on that device control interface, you could also have a setting which is called disable mute, and then you really have reliably what you want to have, Yvonne. But I think we will have to talk about that internally.
Yeah,
if we should really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. So we have written a real quick integration. We have done settings. We also have handled events coming from the device. So you have seen that it is quite simple to do that. Nathan, what's your feeling? Do you see any issues which you don't understand or which you want to have more information on, or do you feel fit to make your own code after the meeting?
I think I'm just I'm ready for writing some codes.
Yeah.
And just wait for the sample to come.
Okay, perfect. So if you try and if you fail for some reason, or if you hit roadblocks, just write me a mail or call me. It's really don't hesitate to contact me. I will just help you.
Thank you. Perfect.
Now we still have 15 minutes. So Michael, I wanted to show you and also Nathan how this would work now if I would use the SDK in a side-by-side fashion. So this application here now, if we find it somewhere. So here's the executable, and it just works because the SDK is installed to the system. Yeah. So what we will do now is we will make it in a way that it also works if the SDK is not installed on the system. That might be important for integrators who don't want to install stuff, because lately it's getting more and more important that applications are not installed actually, but they are just copied somewhere and can run without having to be installed to the Windows system. So we provide ways to do that also with the SDK, and I will show you how that is done. So actually, as we said before, here is the executable, and next to the executable, the SDK must be placed somehow. And as I don't know exactly how that has to look like, I will try to find some test application in the SDK folder which does exactly that, and then just copy it. So that's basically always the way how people are supposed to integrate our SDKs. they can just use the test application which we provide and copy stuff from there. And that is what I'm gonna do now. So we have a test application in the SDK folder. So we still are 32-bit, and here we have the registered installation folder and the side-by-side installation folder. So I will have we have test applications in both folders. So I will have a look at the side-by-side installation folder, and here is a test application. And here is the executable of the test application. I can show you how that looks like. It's actually the test application which we provide is displaying or demonstrating everything the SDK is capable of. So the application I just wrote is doing just a couple of things. It's you have seen it. It's handling one event, it's setting one setting, and it's initializing the SDK. But this test application is doing everything the SDK can do. So here I can initialize. I can see how many devices are connected. It's one. I can reset that device to factory defaults. I can get the device info. So what's the firmware version, for example? It's 0.9. What's the serial number? Is it unlocked? Yes, it is unlocked. I can do the device configuration. I can get the microphone status. I can also set it to mute it, for example. So everything we did in our really tiny application you can do here, but here you can do everything else as well, including upgrading the firmware. So this test application is working side by side. So next to the executable, we have a folder which is called philips.smartmic. And in that folder, we have the SmartMike control DLL. This is now really the SDK. We have some logging DLL, which is used by the SmartMike control for if you have to do some logging. And we have a manifest file which tells the executable about the SmartMike SDK. So what we do is quite simple. We just copy that folder and we go back to our, where was it? Yeah, here we go back to our executable and paste the folder here. Unfortunately, that's not all. We have to do one step more, because it's important to tell the Visual Studio project that it will use the SDK in a side-by-side fashion. So there is one file which is also part of the SDK here, of the SDK package in the test application. I will write that everything into a document, Nathan. Don't worry if you can't follow here. But here in the files of the test application, we have a manifest file which we need to include in our Visual Studio project. So I don't really copy that. I go to my Visual Studio solution. I copy just the path, and I add that to my project. It's an existing item, and it is here. I have to select all files to see it. Here's the manifest. So I have now added the manifest, and what I still now need to do is one more step. I have to tell the application in the project and the project properties to use that manifest. Here it is, and that's it. So I'm building it again. I'm compiling the application again. Wait a second. Or I just rebuild the whole solution to see if it compiles all right. Yes, one succeeded. That's perfect. So here's my executable. I will try to run it. And it works. That's nice. No crashes. The device is also unlocked. That's everything's nice, but actually it would always have worked because we still have installed the SDK. We didn't uninstall it. So in order to see if it really works side by side, we have to uninstall our SmartMike control. Okay, so now it's gone. We have not installed any SmartMike control. The only thing we have is that folder where the DLL is, and the manifest file telling the application to look here for the SmartMike SDK. And we will try to run it again, initialize, and everything works. Unmute. Yes, everything works. So this is how to use the SDK in a side-by-side fashion without having to install anything. Yeah, and I'm done, and it went really well, I guess, because we are in time, which is not one of my strengths. But yeah, as you have seen, I mean,
very well done.
yeah, what about the non-tech people? Of course, this is programming and there are lines of code and it looks complicated, but you have seen when I have done it, then it's not really such a big deal, right?
Absolutely, I think, and again, I have always seen a smile on the face of Nathan. So indeed, it's not difficult. Normally, I only see that when we have a beer in the bar. So I think it's quite easy for him. No, absolutely. And Nathan, please go ahead.
Hello?
Show us the beer, Nathan.
Which beer? Which beer? The beer I'm going to get, or the beer I'm going to spend.
Wolfgang is going to get a beer. Nathan, what I will do now is
I have a special one.
Okay.
Hey, you got this Bacardi too with a black bat. Yeah.
So Nathan, I will send you the SmartMike SDK package, the folder you have seen where everything is in. But please be aware that this is it's not the final build. It's just an alpha tested build, and there might be some bugs still, and also there is also some documentation in that folder. I can show you that here in the doc. That's very nice because because it explains everything which is in the SDK. So you can always look at that if you hit some issues. But also that is not the latest, not the final version. I have looked briefly around it, and there are some mistakes in it. So we are not done with the project yet. But you can already. I will send this package to you for playing around and also for maybe showing Unisound. But please always be aware and tell everybody that this is not the final version. Final version will be, of course, possibly without any bugs, and the help will be correct. Yeah, but I will send it to you, and I will also send like a Word document describing the steps I have just done, creating that simple application. So you can just follow it and make your own integration. And as soon as you were successful in doing your own integration, you can make a meeting with Unisound or whoever and show them how it works.
Okay, perfect.
And Robert, one question: we are now sending out the samples next week. So when can we, or how can we provide then also the SDK to the potential customers?
Yeah, for that, who do you send the samples to?
So these are both customers from us already. That's in Japan and Korea.
Okay. It depends really if they are planning to integrate the SDK in their applications or if they just want the device to work. Because if they just want the device to work, we can provide a really small application which just unlocks the device when it's running, you know. But also we can send them the SDK, but I wouldn't want to send now a lot of alpha builds around the world which have bugs and stuff.
But so when is then the timeline? Is it mid of July?
The SDK will be finished in early July. So it should be after the first week of July. It should be finished at least in a state where we can give it away to the world. I mean, it's still not officially released then because Carl has not done the release tests because he plans on doing that in August. But we are going then into the beta test phase where we send the samples around the world, and we will also provide a release candidate of the SDK with that. But I think early July we will have a release candidate of the SDK, which I am not embarrassed of sending to the world.
If when you say we can give them, I don't know, a program or a how-to guide, how to use the device, are they going to be able to use the AI that we have in the device?
Yes, as soon as the device is unlocked, it's just a microphone device for the operating system with two channels, and those two channels are the two separated speakers. So the AI will already work then because it's in the device and it's unlocked by the SDK. But you don't need the SDK for anything else. So you don't need the SDK to handle those audio streams. You can just use those audio streams in Teams or GoToMeeting or in any audio application which can handle streams. So the SDK is actually only for unlocking the device so it sends those streams. So, for example, Unisound has already an application which is doing speech recognition on two different streams. And they have already used our device and just plug and play. It just worked because it delivers two audio streams, and that is what their application needs. That's everything they need. Those devices which they have tried this on were of course unlocked by default. So with the new devices we are shipping out, they have to be unlocked by the SDK or by a small program using the SDK.
So basically all they ever have to do is implement this first init button, right,
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
That's all they have to do.
Yes.
It's like 1 minute of work.
Doesn't need to be a button. It can just be in the initialization code of their application.
So you don't feel comfortable sending that SDK that we have
the
right
one
now?
we have right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable because it's I got it yesterday from our developers in Hungary, and it's just an early build. You know, I have checked it briefly and I have seen errors already. So it's not even alpha tested. You know, it's just what came out of development. It is currently alpha tested in Budapest, and they will be finished with that test in a few days. And after that, I feel more comfortable.
But you also said
if we send it out
early July is just around the corner. So it's going to take a couple of days to ship it to Korea and Japan, and then for them to make time available. I probably would prefer if you wait for the next SDK, because I don't want to give the impression to the customer, here's the device, here is the different code or whatever, you can just hack it and use it without our help.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree. Also, when we sent them like an SDK package, I would also try to bundle to that package a video tutorial where I make things I just made in that 1 hour, and also a step-by-step guide, maybe so an initial guide how to use the SDK in text form. So it's gonna be really simple for those people to use the SDK. And maybe one part of that package is also a very tiny application which just unlocks the device. So an application which is already using the SDK.
Yep.
Which basically the test application does. And you have there is an executable of the test application in the package already. And if you run that and hit initialize, the device will be unlocked. So, but maybe this can be made simpler.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we agree, Robert, more or less that if we send out next week the products, they will arrive, if everything works well, July 6th, which is the next Monday, or end of the week, but okay, they can start July 6th, so that by July 6th, we can also send to them the SDK package. Is that realistic?
Yeah. I mean, it will be alpha tested, but what I want to do is I also want to test it, and I also want to have to really check it deeply, and that might take some more days. Problem is that, of course, it's always a problem in July that I'm on vacation in the first week. So either I do my checks next week, which is not very realistic, I would say, or I do it after the first week of July. So wait a second. July, this week I'm on vacation, 6th to 10th. So we have said mid of July at some point in the meeting, right? So I would go back to that, and I would say I can provide a proper SDK package, which I'm comfortable with, which contains everything I just said, with all those guides and little applications, maybe on 17th of July. So if you ship the devices on 13th, they arrive somewhere in the week, the SDK package would be provided on the 17th. It could be 1 week earlier, but I'm on vacation in this week, so that's the problem.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the reason why they need the SDK is what exactly?
To unlock the device. So it no, don't be sorry. It's a perfectly valid question. So they need the SDK to unlock the device, so the device would send those real audio streams and not just noise. Because if they don't unlock the device, it will send noise. And to unlock the device, you need an application which is using the SDK. So the SDK has to run somewhere.
But you just mentioned earlier, you can give them something to unlock the device to just start their beta testing with the audio quality. Yes,
that's true. And that I could provide earlier, because that will definitely work. I don't need to test that, because it's a really stupid little program which will just be there to initialize the SDK in order to unlock the device. I can provide that tomorrow.
Michael, not sure what you think, but in regards to the project in Japan, what they want to test is really the quality of the audio separation, and we can just sell it like, okay, it's a better device, it's a better functionality for you to test the audio. Moving forward, you will get an SDK, and then it's going to be subscription based or whatever we decide. But I think there is a way, because they are starting in July with that project in Japan.
Exactly.
Wait a second.
So I feel that
Michael,
July 17th. Sorry, I feel also that July 17 is quite late, because that's the weekend, and so you have then July 20. Yeah. And they were expecting something around the first week of July, which of course is then not 1st July, but in the case of 6 or 7 of July. So okay, if this is something I mean, the product is anyhow not final as well, so the hardware is also not final, so we cannot expect to have the software or the SDK final. But indeed, to have something in hand to play around, to show to customer, I think it's good enough. It's working. It's I don't know, 80% final. So in that sense, I think it's a very good proposal.
We just have to mention that it's not final. I mean, it would
absolutely be again. They don't see a packaging. They don't have the pouch. They don't have the final accessories or cables, whatever. So it's clear. And again,
Michael Bosowitz, I just forgot that we are actually working on such an application for demo purposes, right? So Simon is currently. So Yvonne, I think we might have exactly what you want to have, because we are working on a demo application for the SmartMike, which is also a small application using the SDK, but just to unlock the device. And the application will be capable of capturing those audio streams, send it to Google for speech recognition, and get back the results, and then write in 2 columns the results of those 2 speakers when they speak. So that will be the perfect demo application for the SmartMike, and it will use the SDK, so it unlocks the SmartMike. But I'm not quite sure when we will be finished with that. But I think it's also something like end of next week, when I remember correctly.
But if I understood Yvonne correctly, all they ever need is just the audio streams. They don't even need some fancy user interface. They just want to unlock the device and play around with it to get the two separated channels. It's all they ever need.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think a tiny app that initializes the device should be sufficient.
Yeah.
And they can get it, I don't know, on Monday, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I can provide that. But we should try not to provide every 2 days something different. And then it's getting complicated because we don't know who provided we with what. But of course, if that's now a time issue, and if it's important, I can provide a small application just unlocking the device on Monday. No problem.
I really don't understand this pressure that we have now. Yeah, I really don't understand why we have this pressure now, because we are one month ahead of that original schedule. So usually we said by end of July we provide samples, and not now. Of course, whatever we can do, we should do, but we should not put so much pressure in because we are not ready yet. Yeah, I mean, there is still development ongoing. No, and if we start now selling, we might have samples and yeah, I understand everything. Yeah, but we have a project plan and we should not overdo anything. We have already accelerated by 1 month. Now we accelerate again by 1 month. So I really understand that you want to sell anything and that you need to sell anything, but we should not come into a situation where we have bad quality out there and then we have complaints because the device is not ready and the SDK is not ready.
Well, if there's bad quality,
this is my
then
fear,
let's stop it here. If it's bad quality, let's stop it here. Because I don't want to go into a tender or project in Japan where we talk about 400 devices if you don't feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, the normal process is that we develop, then we test it, and we release it. At the moment, we are still in the development phase, and we give out devices and we give out software to somebody, and it's a risk. Yeah, we just have to be very aware of the risk that we are at a stage where we usually don't give away devices. No, usually we would do it in 1 month from now. Yeah, just want to state.
Wolfgang, the starting point was that we got this project request, I think 2 months ago, where they say, hey, we are working on that. We are looking for a solution, which is exactly doing what you are showing us on the PowerPoint. When can we have the sample? Yeah, we said mid of July, end of July. It's a pity. We would like to start beginning of July because based on the tender documentation. And then I agreed with Willie also to get the products ready by next week, so we can ship them out next week, which is indeed great. The first 10 pieces and not the 150 pieces. So that's why we prioritize for Japan and Korea.
You have this then, but there's no final firmware. You have the pure hardware, but the firmware is not ready.
Of course, it must be aligned with the firmware and the SDK accordingly, and that's why we have talked to Robert and Michael. And if there is a compromise or if there's a possibility indeed to provide something which is not 100% perfect, but which meets expectations of the customers, I think it would be stupid to say, okay, based on the project schedule, we still have 3 weeks, so make it, again, 20% great. You know, if 80% is good, we don't need the 100%. Again, it would be not wise to skip that project. My point of view. So if everybody says, okay, it makes sense to introduce the hardware, which is also not 100% perfect because it's a better sample, but it's based on the expectation of the customer. And if we can do that for the software as well, and again, what does the customer need? He needs to unlock the device and he wants to play around with the 2 audio streams, and we can do that, we should do it. Sorry, but we need some.
I understand your point. I understand your point. Yeah. But finally, I mean, the question is then, can we live with an application that everybody has to install, or wouldn't it be better that they install an SDK to also get the events? But that's up to you then. Yeah. I just wanted to state that we are not in a phase where we usually get away devices. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Wolfgang, if they are happy with not having to use the SDK's functionalities, then why force them? If they need some more functionality, they will have to use the SDK anyway. But if they just need something to unlock the thing because they just want to have the streams, So why not give it to them?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we
If
can
all
give
have
them
a
something on the
very
6th
good
of
feeling
July.
about that.
Mm.
If
But
you
we
all have
can give
a good
something.
feeling about that, then we can give away the devices, and then we can also give away this tool. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah?
I do.
We just have to say.
Because
Yeah.
I do because we also see that there's kind of a beta test for us where we can, everybody knows that this is not the final stuff. But if they find issues, that's good for us. We can fix it before we release it.
I just heard Yvonne to say, okay, if I have a device that is not finally working and there might be problems, I rather don't give it away. This is why the alarm bell started ringing with me.
Yeah.
So
No,
Yvonne expects that she has a final device somehow. Yeah. So maybe this was the impression that I got. Yeah.
No, my concern was more into the direction, because we're talking about Japan, and in Japan, we would like to introduce the recurrent revenue. And that project is due to be rolled out in end of Q1 next year. So they start quite early. And I was just thinking, okay, if they can unlock the device without an SDK, would they be technically good enough to kind of hack it and then just use it? On the other hand, we sell these devices, so we know where these devices are going to.
No,
For a test would be good. I think that's all we need, and I agree with Robert. They might be able to give us more hints where we lack and what is needed on the device.
Yeah, I mean every time that we can gain before we release it is just positive. Just the hint that you gave us, they might not want to use the mute button is very valuable for us, and maybe other things that might come up. So I just want to make sure that we are all, let's say, confident that we can give away the devices in a state which is where it is now, rather than waiting for another month for giving away devices. So if we all say that's fine with us, then I'm also fine with it. Yeah. So
sounds good.
Hardware-wise, the hardware itself is okay for me for a beta test. Yeah, of course we are not in a final stage. That's also clear. Firmware-wise, we are still under development, but I think it's also already very stable. And software-wise, hardware SDK-wise, yeah, if we can provide this tool for unlocking,
for unlocking,
that would also
we are good for unlocking it.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm fine. Yeah. Just playing devil's advocate. Yeah, so,
no, it's good that someone
positive tension, is it?
Usually it's me.
Absolutely.
Usually it's me.
I mean, we just have to apply Agile also in the software department, not just for the hardware development. I think then it will be more smooth.
Yeah, also more dangerous, but it's not so simple as it looks on paper. I agree with Wolfgang on that, and I was always the one saying I don't want anything leaving our company when it is not properly released and tested by all of us. But I tend to change my mind, because some things, some issues, some mistakes or failures, we only see when customers are using it, and we can't find that on our own. And it's maybe not such a bad thing if we tell a customer, look, you can have this to play around. This is beta stuff, but just use it to play around. Then it's not so bad for our reputation or embarrassing if something really goes wrong. So I slightly changed my mind on that. I think it helps us more and improves the quality of our products more.
And again, I mean, the official release is mid of September.
Yeah.
And now we talk about beginning of July. So, but I think it's a good development to show indeed, especially for bigger project or for more important customer, to show the product already before and not just in the finished box, in the retail box, and say, here we go, this is the product, how many do you want to sell, but to involve them already at a quite early stage.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, fine.
Then thank you very much, Robert. Thank you very much for your time and your efforts. Really appreciate that.
It's my job.
And great job.
Well done. Okay.
No, really good.
Great job.
I have to leave.
And you will also provide some written documentation, or is it the link you have shown before?
No,
Thank
right.
you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
So now,
See you
for
later.
now, I will send something to Nathan, which is not official. It's just a Word document I have prepared already. I can send it really quickly for Nathan to be able to do the same things I just did. Then I will provide a really small application for unlocking the device, which I will send to all of you, which you can use to go to potential customers.
Yeah.
And then until mid of July, I will work on the whole package containing documentation, step-by-step guides, a video tutorial, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Video. Wow. But
Yeah.
just to be sure, because on Monday, on June 29, we have this global call. This is always connected to the PSM 1010. So it's nothing, or is this also possible for the PSM 1000 for the recurring revenue? Or is this a different SDK?
No, it's not a different SDK. There's only one SDK for both devices, but
okay, very good.
The SDK only unlocks the 1010 device just without any questions. If there is a 1000 device connected, it would not unlock it unless it gets a license from the license server. But this is not implemented yet. But still, if we would have already 1000 device and you connect it to the SDK, it would be recognized and you would be able to do the device configuration and firmware upgrades and stuff, but it would not be possible to unlock it now.
No, but I can say on Monday to all our region colleagues that by mid of July, 20th of July, you can provide a complete SDK package, including video tutorials, including
which is still beta, by the way, which is still beta, so it's not final.
Well, beta, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we also say that the test samples are then also possible to be sent out.
Yes.
So that they might feel more comfortable that they have the hardware product and the SDK, everything in one box to the integration partners.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Very good. That's good input, and we will add this to the presentation on Monday. So actually, Yvonne, for you, no need to get up at that time, huh?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. What do you mean, get up at the time? Not going to bed.
And finally, you can go sleeping. You can
I will. Yes, I'll skip Monday session. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was really good.
Okay.
Thanks, Robert.
Cool.
Michael.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
You. Thank you, Nathan, also, because it was your holiday, huh?
Have a good
It's the Dragon Festival this week in China.
Yeah, Dragon Festival, China. Yeah,
yeah, but it's too hot outside. It's too hot outside. Nobody likes to walk on the streets like, I don't know, 38 degrees. No, wow. not even the water. And yeah, both things. Not for me.
Okay, so you had a good excuse not to spend the day on the boat, but to stay in your dark apartment. Very good.
Yeah, true, because it's a very important meeting and about SDK for SmartMike. So this is my official reason for staying at home.
Thank you very much, Nathan.
Thank you.
We will also check with FedEx where the sample will be arriving. I've seen it on Monday, but we will double check with FedEx to be sure that you have it on Monday. And then I will also inform you when we send it out for Unisound, the 40 pieces.
Perfect.
Okay, and we catch up on Monday.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Jacob. Bye, Nathan.